We're ushering in a new year and a new season of today's Shopsmith by going back to the basics. I'm going to show you how to quickly and easy convert from tool to tool to tool by using an old technique called dry running. Stay tuned. You know, out of all the comments I've heard over 38 years of doing this, from not just owners, but people coming out to watch a live presentation at the home shows, the fairs, the malls, the one comment that most everybody makes at the end of a presentation is, "Wow, Mike, you sure make that machine simple and easy to set up." Well, it is simple and easy to set up after a lot of work preparing to make the machine simple and easy to set up. And this is something that owners, old and new, just don't seem to take enough time doing, preparing to set the machine up a quick, easy, and efficient way. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about that, and I'll show you some tips and tricks on making your setups, your conversions, a little bit easier and simpler. There was a time not too long ago where it was my responsibility to hire and train new field reps. I came up with a pretty intensive 2-week training period. By the time those new reps left, they were ready to go out in the field and start presenting the machine the way it needed to be, presented to folks just like you. The very first day was always really the starting point. That first day, we never plugged the machine in, we never ran the machine. What we did is we spent a lot of time simply learning how to handle the pieces, learn what the pieces were, learn how in a proper order to attach the pieces to set up whatever tool was necessary. They would do that all day long for the first day. Then for the first 30 minutes every other day after that, they do nothing more than dry run. They go from this tool to that tool to this tool, back to this tool, and back to that tool again, until, by say, the end of that 2-week period, they had it down so it looked simple and easy to do. But, like I said, it's 2 weeks of learning how to do that. There's two things that are very critical if you want to learn how to set this machine up quickly and simply. Number one, you got to be very economical in your movements. You want to minimize how many movements it takes to set a tool up. That even means your whole body, okay? You should never have to move more than 2 steps left or right to set up any machine. You should never have to step back 1 step even to set up a machine. So a trick to help you there, and I highly recommend you try this, is right here. Grab yourself some painter's tape and simply map out your moving area. What you're looking at here is about 2 foot wide, 6 foot long. That's approximately the length of the Shopsmith itself. Bring your machine back up and you'll see that this is now your usable, movable working space. That's what you're going to try and stay in while you make your conversions. This last and final tip is absolutely critical. You have to have all the pieces and parts for whatever tool you're getting ready to set up at your fingertips. Fumbling around, searching for pieces just slows things down, doesn't make woodworking very fun. I have always recommended and highly suggest you either make or buy something like this accessory shelf. Everything is right there when you need it. I really can't stress enough how important it is to mark out that space, know how much room you have to move around, and to have all your pieces and parts right at your fingertips. If it sounded like I'm trying to sell you an accessory shelf, you're damn right I am. That's how important it is. One of the most common things I would sell every single week out in the field is, guess what? A drill chuck. Oh, Mike, I don't know. I was drilling. I pulled the chuck off, set it down. The next time I needed to use the drill, I couldn't find my drill chuck. If you know exactly where that drill chuck is, it always goes back to the same spot every single time you're done using it, you don't have those kind of problems. Now, granted, you have to learn how to hold some of these pieces and parts. The toughest Longest conversion of all is a table saw. It's toughest only because we got some awkward pieces. Example, we always start out setting our table saw up by adding our lower guard and our blade. Well, a lot of people grab this thing, put it on like so. They will lock it down, of course. Then they'll take the blade and try and get that lined up on that, come on that spindle, and they're just spending way too much time doing that. The trick here is to think of the guard and the blade as being a single unit. In other words, instead of trying to put them on separately, put them on together. Notice how I'm holding the lower guard. 2 fingers on my left hand, I'm right-handed. The key here is taking an index finger and putting it right into the arbor itself. Both pieces combined will slide on simultaneously, that quick and that easy. You want to get comfortable doing exactly that. Notice how, again, I'm holding that lower guard, index finger in the arbor, she'll slide right on every single time. Here it is again in slow motion and a close-up. Notice the index finger. You literally point that finger right at the center of that quill. She'll slide right on, just like that. Removing it the same way. Bring your hand down on the metal part of that lower guard, index finger into the saw blade arbor, and then with one swell motion, pull it all off. Another problem area for a lot of owners is attaching the main table to the carriage. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an owner grab that table and blindly start poking away with those table legs, hoping they'll hit those holes eventually in the carriage. And he finally does, but man, that's a lot of effort. Here's a much easier, simpler way to do it. Grab your table like it is a suitcase, then extend one arm holding the weight of that table. That way you can see both posts of the table. Then it's easy to put one post into a hole, another post into a hole, pivot the whole table into the carriage, and down she goes. Much, much simpler. Now, believe it or not, the disc sander gives a lot of people some fits too. Really for the same reasons as the table saw, blade, and a guard gives them fits. They try and do it as individual pieces. In other words, they'll put their guard, in this case the dust chute, into position. They'll grab that disc sander and try and get that in there, realizing they got to first adjust the dust chute part of the lower guard. Then they, again, stab away at getting the disc onto the spindle of the quill. Let me show you an easier way, similar to, like I say, the saw blade and lower guard. You again think of these two pieces as being a single piece. That means the disc is already in the dust chute. Again, notice I'm holding the lower guard. I've got a good grip on the top of the disc sander itself. I'm looking right down on top of the quill itself. I slide the dust chute, disc sander in together. It just simplifies and speeds things up way, way quicker and easier. It's that economy of motion again. Of course, the two drilling machines you have built into the Shopsmith, your horizontal boring machine, your drill press, really don't present a whole lot of problems. There's not a whole lot to attaching the drill chuck to the spindle of the quill, locking that into position. We're ready to horizontal bore. For some people, setting up the drill press can be a bit troublesome too, though. You got to remember to drop your table down, of course. And on the old machine, we could pretty much set the headstock up anywhere we wanted. Of course, you want to remove your extension table. And I guess the hardest part on most of the machines in the old days was raising it up into the drill press position. That's where we're always taught an overhand, underhand technique. I'm right-handed again, so my right hand is overhand on top of a waste tube on the right side of the headstock. Left hand is on the left side of the headstock, underhand. And then, of course, you had to lift that machine up. So we'd raise that thing up, using our legs, up, up, and up she went. On the old machine, we didn't worry a whole lot about positioning the drill bit or the chuck itself in relation to the table, because we could always raise or lower the headstock itself. Well, here's something most people don't know. The Power Pro, this has a Power Pro on it, is way, way heavier than the original headstock. You can't raise this thing up in the vertical drill press position anymore. You'll hurt yourself, you'll blow a shoulder out, it just can't be done. So here's what you want to do. You want to be prepared. You got to know what you're going to be drilling. Then you set the drill bit position accordingly in the horizontal position. That means if I'm going to drill through this piece all the way through, I'll typically use a sacrificial piece. If you're doing a lot of drilling, you might want to pull your saw insert out and put your round drum sander insert in there. But you position close the bit while it's in the horizontal position, just like I've done here. Now when you raise the machine up, you're already pretty much set and ready to go. So if you preset everything horizontally, when you're up vertically, now you bring both your pieces, your sacrificial piece and the piece you're actually going to drill in there, and you're already ready to go. Just set your depth of cut, start drilling. Of course, nowadays, with the advent of the Mark 7, we have 2 additional tools that require setup. Let me show you those real quick. That's your shaper table and your router table. This machine has a lift assist on it, so the first thing you want to do is disconnect it. This has a quick release on it. Once that's released, you can bring the machine back down. No real effort bringing it down because you're not lifting anything. Then I'm going to slide the headstock all the way down to the left, as far as she'll go. We don't need our drill chuck anymore. It goes right back into its normal location. Here's what's a little bit different. We're going to take our main table and we're going to reverse it. No, you can't do that on a standard Mark 5. It doesn't have teeth on both sides of your table legs. You reverse it. Then what you're going to do is remove this lower trunnion guard. Now I'll either add my router chuck or my shaper arbor, depending on what operation I'm doing. Add it right now. Go ahead and lock it down right now too. And bring the table as far as she'll go to the left as well. There's a secondary lock on a Mark 7 down here on this end. By unlocking that, you're now able to raise the machine the opposite direction. This now puts you into your shaper router configuration. You'll need to remove your saw insert, and we'll replace it with our shaper router insert. We're ready to shape and route. Our last tool is the wood lathe. Pretty straightforward and basic, simple to do. Again, if you have everything at your fingertips, we can actually add a couple pieces at the same time. Tool rest, tailstock, final piece, either your drive center. A lot of people using Nova chucks now. There's not a whole lot to that one right there. When you take the time To learn how to maneuver the pieces and parts for whatever tool you're trying to set up, you take into consideration that economy of movement again, you'll find that setting this machine up is a whole lot quicker and easier. It takes practice. You run through what I've shown you here over and over and over until it feels comfortable with you. In the old days when we had a video on how to set the machine up, near the end of that video, we talked about taking the first 30 minutes of being an owner and it being all put together and ready to go. Just take 30 minutes and go from tool to tool to tool to tool and learn how to set this thing up. I recommend that for anybody, either a new owner or an old owner. I still dry run, they call it, if I've not been on my machine for an extended period of time. And I'll show you what a dry run looks like right after this message. So now that you've seen some of the intricacies of handling certain pieces, attaching them in the right way onto a machine, you're able to go out there and start practicing those setups on your own. That means you're out there dry running, and when you put it all together, it looks just like this. Dry running will probably be the single most important thing you'll ever do with a Shopsmith. I mean, if you want to really get the most out of your machine, you want to be able to quickly and easy convert from tool to tool to tool, just do what I've shown you here today. Get comfortable with holding those pieces, learn how to put those pieces on smoothly and easily, and your woodworking itself will become that much easier, that much simpler, and a heck of a lot more enjoyable. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of today's Shopsmith. Again, this is Season 2, Episode 1. If you like what you've seen, hit the like button and make sure you subscribe. In the meantime, I hope you have a great 2022, and I'll leave you with this.